Hey folks, my specialty is student loans, not technology. So just give me 1 second. This is our first YouTube live stream ever. So I'm gonna try to get the link, and I'm gonna try to just get a couple people in the room here. So just 1 second. This is so funny. So let's see if I can figure this out. Okay, looks like we have some people here. Because I'm doing my best here to use technology. Maybe everyone can put in the chat to let me know if you're here. So let's see. Cool. So Abel says, "Hey Travis, we've got 6 people, I think." So I want to make sure that I've got the right link for everyone. So pop something in the chat. Let's see what we got here. 7 people. Okay, I'm starting to figure this out. Woo! All right, so I'm going to invite some of our friends. Put in the chat where you're from. Abel, can you put in the chat where you're from? Let's see what we have here. Cool. So Carrie made it. Awesome. So I'm going to do my very best here to edit this link. I appreciate everyone's patience with me here. We're almost ready. So we've got April is in SoCal, Phoenix, Arizona, Michigan, Colorado, Michigan. I really appreciate you guys joining. So we're about to blast this out to our 40,000 person community. So I think we're about to have some more people joining us here. So just give me 1 second. Since you guys are here first, probably put in the chat what are your most burning student loan questions right now. All right, let's make sure that works. Oh, it does. Good. All right. All right, so we just sent that out to 20 gazillion people. Cool. All right, so let me check the chat here. All right. So can you ask some student loan questions here? So I've got some stuff I'm going to talk about here in a second. So I've got a little bit of a agenda, but cancellation is something that a lot of people are talking about right now. I think that but a lot of people want to know if President Biden's going to forgive some student loan debt. So I'm going to wait on that till we get a little bit bigger audience in the room to talk about that. Parent Plus info is what Jim wants to know about. So while we're waiting on people to show up today, I'll go ahead and talk about Parent Plus loans a little bit. So Parent Plus loans, you can get those out for kids' school. They're unlimited, that you can take it out as much as you want. I would say Student Loan Planner's record is probably like 7 or 800,000 of Parent Plus loans for say maybe 3 or 4 kids that all went to private university. So Parent Plus loans, Jim, if you have any other specific questions, just let me know. Thank you so much. We've got a little bit more people joining us now, about 30 something. So really excited to do our first ever live stream here. It's really kind of or an adventure, you could say. So thank you so much for working with me here. So I want to talk about cancellation first as we get the bigger audience joining us. So let's see here. We got Bay Area. So I guess first put where you're joining us from if you haven't gotten to put that in there. I'm just interested to see the different groups here. So converting to manageable payments. Got a lot of good stuff. So this is a real experiment here for me. So hopefully we'll provide some useful stuff for you. Experience with private loan refinance. For those with having a federal mix, problems with getting refi offers now, federal loans are for forbearance. A lot of good questions. So I think that probably the most interesting thing I can do to start is just let's talk about student loan cancellation, because I think a lot of people want to know about that. A lot of people have some questions around that. So if we talk about cancellation, what do we think is going to happen, right? So I did some research today, and if you think about the legislative process, you can kind of predict what's going to happen with cancellation. So specifically, you've got budget reconciliation. So this is a complicated thing. Basically what it means is it's how Congress passes stuff when you have a filibuster blocking people from passing things. So you have the American Recovery Plan that came out, and that was something that eliminated taxes on forgiven student loan debt until the end of 2025. So they have used up one big reconciliation bill. And the question is are they going to use another one? And if they are, you have to do one reconciliation bill basically per fiscal year. So that means the next shot Congress has at passing a big bill through reconciliation is actually on October 1st when fiscal year 2022 starts. So because the prior Congress didn't use one, they got to use one for the American Recovery Plan. So that's how they got 1.9 trillion and got that student loan forgiveness tax change passed through so quickly. So in terms of cancellation, here's what I'm thinking. I think that you're going to see an infrastructure bill. I think you're going to see an infrastructure bill that it's going to get pushed through. The New York Times, I think, was reporting today that it's about $3 trillion. So if you figure a $3 trillion infrastructure bill there's some talk about making community college free, which would make sense since President Biden's wife is a community college professor. So I expect the education aspects of things to be more focused on that. And if they cancel $10,000 of student loan debt, President Biden's most likely going to try to do this via legislative path versus executive order. He might try to cancel 10,000 via executive order, but it would get challenged, and I think that it would get brought all the way to the Supreme Court. So in terms of whether or not this is going to benefit I would say probably not, because my guess is we're going to see a big infrastructure bill. The first round of it is going to have the cancellation inside, but then that costs about $300 billion. So are they going to spend $300 billion out of a $3 trillion bill on student loan cancellation? I don't think so. Now, what they might do is they might narrow and target that. So if they do that, it's probably going to be, my thoughts are it's going to be very targeted towards people that are in economic distress or people who have a situation where they're low-income borrowers, right? So that would limit the cost down from $300 billion, where it's a big part of the discussions about how the infrastructure bill is extraneous to COVID, right? That's what the opposition that you would expect would be. And instead, I think it'll get dropped down to maybe around, I think probably like a $30-40 billion, only for people in economic distress. So people are asking, let's see, Molly's asking, if I have $10,000 that gets canceled, will that apply to private and federal or just plus loans? Like, how are they going to apply it? And that's a great question. Like, most likely they would just apply it to whatever your highest interest rate is first, simply because they would typically do that. When you make payments on your loans, if you make extra payments, like they typically just automatically apply it to the highest interest rate first, unless you have, specifications otherwise. So it's going to be really fascinating to see what happens with cancellation. It's really interesting that they're focused on cancellation instead of interest rates. So I want to talk a little bit about interest rates. Like, will they do anything about lowering the interest rates on federal student loans? So here again, I think the answer is no. And the reason for that is because if you look at how they set student loan interest rates, it's actually through something called the Bipartisan Student Loan Certainty Act. I think it was of 2013. And guess who was one of the co-sponsors of this? Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia, who is, obviously the linchpin, the swing vote of the Senate right now. So you would kind of presume that they're not going to take that up in earnest to try to redo student loan interest rates completely, even if that would benefit a lot of the people in our community. So why don't I think that they're going to affect student loan interest rates? It's basically because they set a formula for those, and interest rates for next year's student loan borrowing is actually going to go up. So I know you didn't turn into this live stream for some bad news, but unfortunately, I think that we're going to see that. And the reason is because it's based off of whatever the government's borrowing cost is. So if the government's borrowing cost is around like 1.7% in the spring treasury auction, which is coming up in a couple weeks, then the student loan interest rates are 3.6 on top of that for Stafford and 4.6 on top of that for Grad Plus. So I don't see them affecting the level of student loan interest rates right now, unfortunately. One Mission DMD asks, are interest rates from private banks usually offering higher interest rates compared to federal loans? So the answer on the front end of borrowing, so there's private loans and then there's refinanced loans, right? So private loans is kind of like up front when you're going to school, you can take out a federal or a private loan, and then later on you can refinance that into a private loan, but it's a refinanced private loan. So the kind of the underwriting criteria is a lot more biased towards high income earners, and the interest rates are a lot lower. So in general, a refinance loan is going to be much lower than a federal interest rate. And the reason for that is, think about it like the federal government sets the credit, like sets the risk basically for one size fits all. And so if you're going to charge a one size fits all interest rate, you're going to have people that are going to, high default rate, schools are going to get charged like too little, and people that are going to dental school and medical school are going to get charged too much. And the reason why you want to typically go with federal student loans for your graduate degree, especially, is because you want to. Sorry, there's a vacuum cleaner in the background. So this is definitely a live stream. I don't know if you guys can hear it. If you can't hear it, then I'm winning here. So in other words, the interest rates on these refinanced student loans, I would expect that they would be probably quite low right now compared to federal student loans. Really, what anybody has in a federal student loan. Just to give you an idea, just to give you an idea of how low they are right now, the 20-year fixed rate on private refinanced student loans for the best qualified, borrowers, I'm seeing, no lie, I'm seeing 3.25% fixed for 20 years. I'm seeing 3.41% fixed. I've had like a dozen people tell me the past like week that they got the most unusual offer ever from one of the lenders on our site, where the lender offered to pause their interest completely at 0% for 6 months to match the federal suspension if they refinance by like mid-April, plus give them like a 3.41% fixed for 20 years. If somebody wants to drop in the chat like who they potentially got that offer from, feel free to. This is the best time I've ever seen for like ultra low interest rates, particularly for longer term interest rates. And I think that's a really kind of an interesting opportunity, because I think people could, that if you need to, obviously if you're going for forgiveness, this is irrelevant. But if you do need to pay back your debt eventually, then I think that, what I would be doing right now is locking in a really long-term refinancing deal, like a 20-year fixed rate. And then basically, like when I have extra money, if the stock market's still pretty high, I'd be throwing it onto my student debt. And eventually, once I paid off a significant chunk, I'd be refinancing to a 10-year, and then I would pay off even more and then refinance to a 5-year. So that's called the student loan refinancing ladder. So I would say, if anybody wants to check to see like what company it is that's offering this, paused 0% interest kind of intro rate, you can go to studentloanplanner.com/refi. I'll see if I can chat this. I'm not sure if I can or not, but you can kind of go to that URL and apply with the people in the table, the lenders in the table, and see if you can get it right there. So I don't want to talk about just refinance here. So Melanie says, wow, I would refinance tomorrow if that was my offer. So this is pretty fun, I guess. Like there's a lot of really different kind of different things involved with live streams, right? You've got like vacuum cleaners in the background. You can see my my sunburn because I went paddle boating for spring, like yesterday. So hopefully you're getting out and enjoying the nice weather. So I want to answer some more of your questions here. I've got a list that our team put together. This is such a fun, interesting process. It's our very first YouTube live ever. So I'm messing up all kinds of things. So let's see. So one person asked, how likely is it that a lender is just gonna, like, that you're already working with, is just gonna give you a lower interest rate? Like, do you have to go to a new place to get a lower interest rate? So that kind of makes sense. So in other words, like say you've already refinanced, you're with Earnest or Common Bond or SoFi or something like that, and and you want to know, hey, like, could I just keep it kind of as is, like with the place I already have it at? Yeah, you could, but you're not going to get a cash bonus. So in general, like, why is a company willing to give you a lower interest rate? It's because somebody else is willing to give you a lower interest rate. And so they want to match that so they don't lose your business. So by all means, if you just prefer keeping it where it's at, you can apply around some places, get a better offer, and just say, hey, will you match or beat this? And if they match or beat it, you could just stay where you're at. And if that's what you feel more comfortable with, then by all means, do it, right? Personally, I would prefer to get the cash bonuses. This is what my wife and I did with her student loans. So we refinanced first with SoFi and got a big bonus. And then we refinanced again with Common Bond to even lower interest rate and got another cash bonus. And so for the second cash bonus, she used it to buy her dream pair of boots. Hopefully it's okay for me to say that. Hopefully she's not watching this live stream. I don't think she would be, but so it's kind of cool. Like, so now those are our Common Bond boots. And so it's just kind of funny, that we were able to get like a nice little cash bonus out of that. And the thing is the bonuses now are like way bigger. So on our site, I think I can put the actual link here. I wonder if this will work. So just for fun, let's see if this will actually work. If I put the actual link in there. Yeah, I think it is. So so definitely, if you need to apply to refinance, definitely make that one of the action items from this, because I think that you might get that deal that I was talking about the paused interest for 6 months. So let's talk about some non-refinance stuff. Let's talk about some more student loan forgiveness stuff. So let's see. So somebody asks, when is it good to consolidate a student loan? When would you do it, and when would you do it versus not do it? Um, so let me just pull the live up here. Golly, this is going to take some practice here for future ones. I'm going to get really good. Oh no, Brandon says I'm telling your wife. Oh, I know that, Brandon. Uh-oh. Um, so consolidation. So when you graduate, right? So when you graduate, the best time is right when you graduate. So what does a consolidation do? Consolidation, in my view, should only be used when talking about consolidating into a federal student loan. So the reason for that is a federal student loan has all the protections, the income-based repayments, everything, right? When you graduate, they're going to base that payment off of what you made the prior year tax-wise. So if you're graduating this spring, you consolidate, they're going to ask you for your income. If you filed 2020 taxes, hopefully while you were a student, your income would be zero, and then your payments would be zero. And so what's pretty cool is if you need to pay your debt off, you can sign up for revised pay as you earn, and that's going to give you a 50% interest subsidy in the first 12 months of your loan. And it's going to cover half your interest while giving you required payments of zero a month for 12 months while you get on your feet, get savings, get established, things like that. So that's really cool if you're going for repayment. If you're going for forgiveness, it's going to give you 12 months of payments at $0 a month that you can then count basically towards your 10 years if you need PSLF, or 20 years if you're going for pay, or 25 if you're going for repay. And so it's kind of like you're getting 12 free months of credit that cost you nothing. That's why consolidation is so great. And when you have already exited, that deferment period after graduation, if you have not consolidated and you're already making payments based on your income, then it's more of a case-by-case basis. You really need to evaluate it to make sure that you're not consolidating unnecessarily, because if you consolidate, you'll lose the credit towards forgiveness, and nobody wants that. So another thing, there was this really interesting New York Times op-ed. I don't know if you saw it, but this was Molly from Radiolab, I think. And so she was talking about how she's got like a ton of student loan debt, and it's, with private banks, it's high interest. It's basically the FEL program, the FFEL loan program. And it was really quite a stunning article to me, because like she could literally consolidate her FEL loans, her FFEL loans, and become eligible for public service loan forgiveness. And yet I don't know why, but she hasn't done that. And so it's just pretty shocking to me how, like, this is a very smart, very educated person that just from a student loan perspective, like, doesn't know the rules. And, I guess that's probably true in a whole lot of things in life, like legal things, medical things. Right. But don't feel ashamed, I guess, like if a like extremely intelligent valedictorian, like top level reporter is still confused about how to best maximize the student loan forgiveness program and benefits, then I think that's you shouldn't feel ashamed. So Abel on my team says I messed up because I didn't ask you what you're drinking. So it's supposed to be a happy hour. I'm supposed to show you what I'm drinking. I'm drinking a cappuccino from my co-working space. I should be drinking vodka Red Bull after trying to figure out this live stream technology. I tell you what, it was pretty stressful. So maybe put in the chat what you're drinking, and I'll get to some more of these questions here. Julie pointed out that my wife should definitely enjoy her boots. So it's kind of funny. I've got, it's kind of weird. Like, like these companies, I guess maybe they want to influence you, right? So I've got like a free umbrella that I got from Laurel Road, and Credible sent me cookies one year. And, hopefully I'm not bribable for some really good chocolate chip cookies, but let me tell you, these are pretty good. So the good news is if you use your cash bonuses, like now that we've negotiated them up so high, like you should be able to buy, like, I don't know, literally the best chocolate chip cookies on the planet. So I think that's more valuable than getting you some sort of like, cute umbrella or something. So let's see. 10,000 of student loan cancellation passes. Would it apply to parent plus loans? If so, would the parent and the student be eligible for cancellation, or the loans in the same states? That's a great question. So the answer there is only the parent. The reason is because the parents' parent plus loans are literally in the name of the parent only. So they're not in the name of the student at all. And so that's kind of a little awkward situation that I sometimes see in my personal personal life. Doing consultations is sometimes like somebody has an agreement to pay the student loans. Like the kid's supposed to pay the student loans, and the kid like doesn't, and their parent has no legal recourse because the student loans are the name of the parent. So, fun fact there. In terms of like, could both people benefit? Well, yeah. Like if they said, okay, we're going to cancel 10K of student debt for everybody below 50K of income or something, then the parent could benefit on the Parent Plus loans, and the kid could benefit on their own Stafford loans. So it's a good question. So let's see. Yeah, it looks like a WeWork. Schuler what? Hopefully I'm saying that right. But yeah, it looks like a WeWork. It's actually a like a more niche kind of co-working space. So is there any hope? Let's see. Mindy says, is there any hope if your loans are 100% federal for cancellation? I mean, there's definitely hope of cancellation of like $10,000, right? Like, so I think the way they're going to do it is they're going to try to push, just because we have a lot of people that just popped on. I think we're going to have, this thing where it's going to be, you're going to see an attempt at canceling 10K for everyone legislatively. They'll put it in the bill. The CBO will score it. It'll score for like $300 billion. And then, and then it'll get attacked, and then they'll pull it out of the bill, but they'll leave it in like in a more limited fashion, right? So it's really probably not going to benefit, I would say, most anyone in our community. It's probably going to be folks in default, delinquency, that kind of setup, that'll get the student debt cancellation if it does pass. And I think they do have to do something because it was such a major campaign promise. But I think that there could be a conversation around like making community college free, something like, I think they're a little afraid, like, I think the Biden administration, when I say they, is a little afraid of looking or appearing like politically, like, I guess more elitist is a bad word to say, but like, that's, I think, why he said in his remarks about why he wasn't going to cancel 50K of student loan debt. That's why he talked about, he is not going to cancel the debt for Penn, Harvard, Wharton, etc. So thank you, Zach, for thanking us for the emails we send. Let's see, is there a maximum monthly payment under an income-based plan? Yes, there is. It's depends on the plan you're on. So if you're on pay or IBR, you're capped out at the standard 10-year plan. That's about 1% of what you owe. If you're on the repay plan, it's just 10% of your discretionary income with no limit. So if you are, Taylor Swift, you're paying off your loans in like 2 months, right? If you're on IBR and you're Taylor Swift, though, your payment would be capped at 1% of your principal balance. Fun fact. I know y'all didn't know that. Oh, hey, Lauren. How you doing, Lauren? Lauren's one of our consultants for Student Loan Planner. It's really cool to see her on. She's one of our superstar consultants, has done, I don't even know how many consults, probably more than me pretty shortly. So let's see what other questions people have. It can be really about anything. Someone says, should I be making payments on my student loans even though I'm on PSLF? I paid off my interest so far. The answer to that is no. You never want to pay a dime more than you have to on a forgiveness plan. And here's something that'll pay for the price of admission, which was free, today. But if you have made any payments at all between March 13th and today, March 13th, 2020 and today, so literally like over a year, if you made a dime of payments during this time and you're going for forgiveness, you need to call your servicer and ask for a refund. And I'm going to 100% guarantee, if you have a direct student loan, that you're going to get it. How cool is that? So we have saved people thousands of dollars. I would say we probably save like 10 to 20% of our clients, like 4 or 5 figures immediately on all of our consults, like the past year doing this, just because so few people know that you can do it. And I think people are terrified about asking for refunds, except this is something that is like literally like encouraged. Like the servicers are required by law to give you the refund if you ask for it. So that's really a pretty cool thing to do. Is you can just simply ask for the refund and get it if you're on a forgiveness-based plan and you've made any payments at all since March 13th, 2020. So criteria for loan forgiveness, Maria asks. So loan forgiveness, basically think about it like this, right? You kind of need to have, if you're on PSLF, it's actually like pretty easy to get your loans forgiven if you have more than $50,000 of a balance, because you can usually do some stuff around like getting on IBR or pay to get a capped payment. You can save for retirement and lower your taxable income to get a lower monthly payment. So I would say like anyone who owes more than $50,000 that works as a nonprofit or government employer and is going to stay there, almost everyone probably could get forgiveness in that situation. For people that are not at a government employer, what we're telling people right now is if you have a debt to income ratio above 1.25 to 1, you probably can get forgiveness. And the reason we say that number is if you just do the math, a debt to income ratio of 1.25 to 1 or more still gives you enough of a remaining balance, assuming like reasonable growth of income, where you're going to have a little bit left over to forgive, where it'll put the total cost at less than refinancing. So what does that mean? 1.25 to 1. If you're a pharmacist that owes $100,000 that works for Walgreens, that earns $100,000 that works for Walgreens, and you have more than 125,000 of debt, then your debt to income ratio would be greater than 1.5 to 1.25 to 1, and then you would maybe be better off going for like pay as you earn forgiveness. So like that's another misconception, is a whole bunch of people are thinking that like forgiveness is not a thing. And it is. It's very much a thing. Otherwise, I would probably have been accosted on the street and beaten upside my head at this point, right? I mean, granted, no one's gotten forgiveness yet for 20, 25-year plans because it's mathematically not possible. So that's something that I want to rant about for a second. So there's all kinds of BS stories out there about like 32 people and one poodle got student loan forgiveness on federal programs that have 2 million borrowers since blah blah blah. So like you'll see stories like that all the time about student loan forgiveness, and the thing is it's just not really accurate. Like it's kind of like technically true. It would be like I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. It would be something like um if you I don't know, hit the surface of the sun, you'd be dead in 0.1 seconds. Like, and to be like, well, yeah, like if anything hit the surface of the sun, you'd be dead in 0.1 seconds. Like it's sort of like just an obviously true statement if you know the rules. So let me explain the rules, right? So like basically no one can qualify for non-PSLF forgiveness until about 2033. And the reason is because the pay program was from 2013 and it's 20 years, right? So you have to, 2013 plus 20, 2033. IBR was created in 2009. 2009 plus 25 years is 2034. So 2033 is the first date anyone can get forgiveness. Who would qualify for forgiveness before that? Anyone who's on the ICR program. The ICR program, income contingent repayment, started in the 90s. And so of all the people, that could have used ICR, you might say, well, why is no one getting forgiveness? And the reason is because one, student loans were capped, really hard before the late 2000s. Like you couldn't borrow more than X amount. And then also ICR requires like 20% of your income with almost no deduction. So you have to make a super high payment on the ICR plan. The only like good use of ICR is for someone who's on Social Security, like because of like a lot of their income's not taxable. So like ICR is the only thing that people could use in the 90s. And it's like totally like useless to get forgiveness, like totally useless. So you have to have like, somehow you'd have to like have been in tons of forbearance to like exponentially grow your loans. And you would have had to have like a graduate degree, and you would have had to like earn like less than 15,000 a year. And it's just like impossible almost to get forgiveness before 2033 for non-PSLF. For PSLF, we're already seeing the first wave. We're seeing actually like 6,000 people have already gotten forgiveness, like totally gotten forgiveness. And that was as of the most recent borrower report in November of 2020. So they haven't even reported like the newer report. Isn't that crazy? Like the stats are already like super old. Like November 2020 is the most recent PSLF stats. And so what's going to happen is this. So like we know a lot of people somehow got all direct loans for medical school starting in 2008. Like that's where we see some of the med schools like figured out PSLF, which got passed in 2007. And so they realized, oh my gosh, like the smartest med schools realized, oh my gosh, we have to get our people into direct loans. And so that started in like 2008. And so the class of 2012 would be the first medical school class that would have direct loans without having to have like a PhD in like loan stupidity, complication, whatever. Right. So 2022 is like when you're going to start seeing a ton of people with large balances get PSLF. Before that, it's going to be people like maybe like if my wife had met me sooner, I could have swept her off my feet or off her feet with my knowledge of loan consolidation rules. And like she might have been able to get PSLF. But alas, I was not able to woo her until like, past the point where like consolidation would have been able to help her. And so we had to pay it off and refinance instead. So this is me attempting to be funny. I don't know if YouTube Live, if you're supposed to try to be funny or if that's like a bad idea. But so I think there will be a recording, Ellen. I think it's just going to go like I think people can like click it on their emails or whatever. So let's see. So what's holding the government back from capping Grad Plus or limiting what schools can charge? So Richard's asking that. So what a great question. What's stopping them? Can anybody say like special interest groups? I mean, so think about like what's stopping them from eliminating tax breaks for like oil companies or the home like the home mortgage deduction, right? So for the oil companies, it's pretty obvious, like big donations, right? For the mortgage interest deduction, super wealthy old people that do not want their mortgage interest subsidy to go away, right? I mean, there's all kinds of like different special interest groups, and they're not necessarily like bad. It's just it is what it is, right? So universities are a huge special interest group that's very influential, and if they capped Grad Plus, then they wouldn't be able to charge unlimited sums, and they'd have to lay a lot of people off. And you could argue that needs to happen, but it's not going to happen for a while because I think that you're going to see the bill for forgiveness is going to be astronomical one day. And then I think that once that happens, I think what's going to happen is they're just going to like reform it, but they're going to reform it like over time. Like they'll probably cap it for like people, that start school 4 years after some legislative bill that they pass. That's kind of my guess. Um, let's see. So someone wants to know their job ends in beginning of June or something like that and starts in July. Would the July count as a qualifying payment? So you have to be employed at a qualifying place for PSLF. So if you're employed like not employed in the middle of June, you make a payment, probably wouldn't count, but it's not going to be too much. So someone wants to know, how can I reduce my AGI? This is the joke hour. I hope you're drinking. I'm drinking a cappuccino here. So hopefully you're drinking something good. So to reduce your AGI, you just make less money. Just kidding. So in reality, you can save for a 401k or a 403b. That's a retirement plan. So you get to do 19,500 into that maximum per year. And that is the best way that the average person can lower their AGI, hands down. If you want to go more complicated, you can lower your AGI, I don't know, faster than meditation can lower your blood pressure by being a practice owner. And so what I mean by that is when you're a practice owner, you kind of set the rules, right? So you can create, you can do things like invest in your practice. You can make depreciation allowances against your income that will lower your AGI. You can set up something called a defined benefit plan where you can put as much as 100,000 away into retirement. That's no joke. So I was talking with one financial advisor friend of mine who was able to get an orthodontist's income down from 600,000 in taxable income down to 300,000 in taxable income. And it was all through like these really complicated like practice owner loopholes that are just not available to you if you stay in a corporate veterinary, dental, medical type environment. It just isn't available. Now, my wife's going to be taking a job at a like a state hospital kind of a place, and she has access to a 457 plan. That's kind of like an additional retirement plan. So you can do 19,500 into that too, if you happen to qualify for that. So that's like the max an employee can do is basically 19,500 times two. You can also reduce your AGI, I think, through some, I guess, less common stuff, but it's not really quite as valuable, I think. So let's see. Other questions. When can you apply for PSLF? I graduated last May and only paid one payment. No refi or consolidation yet. Well, if you graduated last May, I would not recommend consolidating because you probably already have some credit. Given they're probably just going to automatically give everybody credit during this COVID forbearance time because it's just going to be such a wreck to keep track of. In terms of when you should apply, I would apply as soon as possible. So I would just go and send in the PSLF form. I don't know if Lauren or Dan, one of our consultants, can maybe drop one of the links to the the consolidation. I mean the PSLF application form in there. But the answer is as soon as possible, because if you get tracked onto loan forgiveness, like in terms of qualifying for it, then you're gonna I think have a pretty good luck. So I'm just gonna keep talking until my coffee runs out. I mean, if you need to go, it's totally fine. But I'm having a really good time, and I just feel like I want y'all to get your money's worth, since I had like technical problems because I'm like an idiot when it comes to technology here. So I'm just really enjoying this. Hopefully you're enjoying it too. So what other questions do we got here? Let's see. Qualifying payments. Yeah, it's so okay. So well, let's talk about qualifying payments for forgiveness, right? So for PSLF, you have to be employed full time at a qualifying employer and have a payment kind of come out of your pocket, during that time. So for PSLF, you have to be employed, like literally employed on the date that the payment comes out. You can't, like, if your payment comes out June 1st and you quit your job June 2nd, that counted as a qualifying month. if the payment came out, June 4th and you quit your job June 2nd, it doesn't count. So that's PSLF. But keep in mind, this is something that kind of confuses people sometimes. Pay, repay, IBR, that counts for the 20 or 25-year forgiveness, like forever, period. I had a really fun email today where it was like somebody I think was just like, hey, the love of my life is in the UK, and I've decided to become a UK citizen, and I'm living in the UK, and like, how do I deal with these federal student loans? And the answer is like, if you're living abroad, you can use the foreign earned income exclusion to write off 100K of all your earnings abroad, 107,000, I think it is. And so if you make up to 107,000 abroad, you can list zero on your US tax return, and then you can get $0 a month payments that count for pay and repay for student loan forgiveness for the 20 to 25-year version. And guess what? They passed American Recovery Plan, Section 9675. They passed that tax-free forgiveness thing that's only going to last until the end of 2025, but it probably gets extended. And so how funny / messed up is this? The best way to pay your student loan debt for your American student loans is to literally leave America, because then you have payments that are $0 a month, and your forgiveness is probably going to end up being tax-free. And so Americans typically are pretty, loath to just move abroad permanently. But I mean, maybe we're going to see more of that. I think there's an outside chance that President Biden's new income-based repayment plan, at some point he decides to make one, will probably like force people to include their spouse's income, but it would grandfather in everyone that already is on a plan that's filing separately. So this is me speculating. I actually don't know if he's going to come up with a new payment plan at all. He's talked about creating a new plan and kind of just like having everyone be automatically opted into it unless they request to be opted out. And so if we did see everyone's spousal income being included in their payments, I think we might see this weird rash of like strategic divorces and strategic moves to Australia and New Zealand, right? I think a lot of people are like raring to go at that already. So maybe that's a goal. Maybe that's your financial independence goal, is save up enough where you can move to Australia and pay $0 a month. There's actually like a huge contingent of clients that we have in Australia that have, like, for whatever reason, met the loves of their lives down under and moved there, and like we made a student loan plan for them, and they literally don't have to pay anything until the government reforms the regulations on how to calculate someone's payment. So that's a fun tip for a fun happy hour. Can I do loan forgiveness even if I'm in private practice, not working? So it's a 401c3, I think, or 501c3. Can I do loan forgiveness even on private practice? The answer is yes, you can. But remember, it's the 20-year forgiveness version. It's not the 10-year version. So the weird thing is like right now, loan forgiveness outside of PSLF is not a well understood thing, period. And why is that? It's because you have the income tax bomb that's kind of confusing. And the other thing is like no one's received it yet, like that you can point to, because I said 2030s was the first time someone would get it. So nobody can point to somebody and be like, hey, like this person is like proof that, that Dave Ramsey's wrong about how no one can go for student loan forgiveness, right? Like nobody can say that, because it hasn't happened yet. Nobody can point to them. So what's going to happen eventually is forgiveness is going to become more of a thing. Like people are going to start seeing other people get it. And then more people will realize, oh my gosh, this is the way we should pay back loans. By the time that happens, like millennials will be in their like 40s, 50s, and 60s. And then we're going to have like, a lot of things to like think about and consider in terms of like, well, do we just turn student loans into just more of like a Medicare type program where we just charge everyone like 3% of their income, and then, student loans are free? Like, I mean, I could certainly see, the system kind of moving that direction at some point. So I think it's important to kind of read the tea leaves and understand like what's going on in the student loan system long term. Forgiveness is going to be a huge thing, but only if you have if you owe like a fairly larger amount than what you earn. If you don't earn, if you don't owe a lot more than you earn, then you're not going to be able to get forgiveness most likely. Let's see. Recent expansion of borrower defense. Can people who have debt from schools that closed apply for forgiveness? You have to be defrauded. You have to essentially, a lot of these people were in sort of a holding pattern on their loans and were just sort of waiting around for something to happen. And so that something that happened is basically they wiped away $1 billion of student loan debt for people that went to, schools that, defrauded them. I would certainly apply. Like, there's obviously no harm at all in applying. There's no negative credit score implications. You just type in borrower defense to repayment, and just try to find the application and submit it and see what happens if your school closed. You do have to prove your school defrauded you, though. I mean, it just depends on what their definition is. But yeah, a lot of people could probably apply for that. I know we had a really difficult time for some clients who were stuck in like limbo with their loans. That was like they shouldn't pay on them, but should they? Because like Secretary DeVos didn't like it kind of stopped the cancellation of them and put it in a holding pattern. But hopefully a lot of people will get their debt forgiven from that. Um, let's see. How are part-time hours calculated? Is it weekly or monthly? If you work less than 30 hours, do you lose the month towards forgiveness? So it's basically like an annual contract. I think it's like, on average, you have to kind of be considered like 30 hours a week or full-time, whichever is greater. You also get, if you're full-time, you get 90 days, or you basically get 3 months worth of FMLA payments or credit that can count towards forgiveness for PSLF. It's kind of a fun fact. If you're on maternity or paternity leave, you're taking FMLA, you can count 3 months a year towards PSLF forgiveness. I'll tell you a funny story about what counts for part-time. So recently my wife negotiated a new job offer. I'll just tell everyone in this live stream, we're moving to North Carolina. Woo! And so, surprise, I haven't even told the email list that yet. So hopefully you guys enjoy learning that first. But in the job, my wife was negotiating for extra vacation. And the way she did it was to like drop from like 1.0 to like 0.95. And that gave her like extra vacation. It's kind of weird. And I guess, she's part-time, except she's full-time in the terms of like benefits and all those things. So she's full-time or she part-time. It's kind of this in between. So a lot of people, that are doing PSLF, like they kind of get in this weird thing where they're like 0.75 or above, they get full-time benefits, but like, are they full-time for PSLF? And remember, it's your employer's definition of full-time or 30 hours a week, whichever is greater. And so in the sense of, if your employer is willing to sign the form and you work more than 30 hours a week, you're full-time. That's it. That's really it. So like the Minnesota Nurses Union, like forced their hospital systems to agree to sign if they're 0.8 or above, I think, because a lot of the HR people were interpreting it differently. So, we can probably help like with the consult with anyone that's like struggling to get PSLF approved. It's like, kind of part-time, but they work more than 30 hours a week. Sometimes we just have to like help them write a letter to HR or something like that. NH says, I'm on IBR and pursuing PSLF. And let's see here. So actually, first Tina says, yay, Charlotte. No, it's actually the Research Triangle area, that metro area. So woohoo. It'll be an interesting move, or a little bit scared. So that's one of the reasons I'm actually not doing consults the next few months, because I'm going to help prepare the family for that move. So the team, we've got Lauren and Dan here on the chat. They're going to be doing consults for the team here and the whole team is going to be doing consults for, so to help kind of take up my slack. So NH says, I'm an IBR pursuing PSLF. Loan payments are being paused under the CARES Act. Will FedLoan have to recertify our income for determining our new painful monthly payment? So I have sympathy for you there, NH, about the payment potentially being painful. So what's going to happen here is with FedLoan, they are going to, if your payment's supposed to start from anywhere between January and March, they're going to ask you for your information in 2022. So in other words, they're just going to pick you up from your 2019 payment. And that's what they're probably going to, this is for most servicers actually. So most servicers are probably going to start your payments again with your 2019 numbers. And then they're going to ask you for your 2020 numbers sometime in after September, anywhere between, September 30th and, sometime in 2022. Now, some of them have asked people for information to recertify. And if that's the case, then we told people, give them your information, and then your payments will be based off of your 2020 number if they have asked you to certify. So as to like, what's the rhyme or reason for which way the two different places have done it? I don't know. That's a great question. I have no idea. I just know that if they ask you for certification, give it to them. If they, haven't asked, then you're basically in the clear as long as you've logged in and they're telling you that there's nothing wrong or in bad order. So Jason's asking, 17 missed qualifying payments by FedLoan. Previous servicer didn't report at time of transfer. Yeah, still nothing, 6 months. So here's a great suggestion for anybody going through what Jason's going through with FedLoan, like not, dragging their feet, not correcting things. So go to your senator, like whoever your senator is in your state, like the most powerful one. I would just go to like type their name in on Google and then type in constituent services. So, and sometimes this doesn't work. I want to be full disclosure, but if you type that in and you find constituent services, basically every senator has two different offices. They have like their federal, like share your opinion one where like robots read it and like or like unpaid staffers and it like doesn't really change anything. And then there's like the help with federal agencies section of their website. And so the constituent services will get you there. And all you have to do is just fill out a request for intervention from the senator's office with Fed loan to correct your payment count. And in my experience, I've maybe only heard of one or two times out of maybe hundreds where people have done this and haven't gotten their payment count corrected within a few weeks. So I would try that. And, you consider a good tip. How long would you wait before Casework help? So it just depends on your pain threshold. Like if you've been waiting 6 months, like obviously the pandemic's going on, like they're probably going to get to it eventually. It just depends on if you want to escalate it or not. It's escalating. It's pretty easy. All you have to do is fill out a constituent services thing on their website, and maybe they might call you. And then, what are the consequences of this? I would say probably not many. Like the senator is there to do work for you as a constituent anyway. So I would say there's not really much of a downside to doing this. Sometimes if you write the letter in a confusing way, like you just like, if like, for example, if you use the constituent casework like file to just like, for lack of a better word, like gripe about how stupid the student loan system is, like you don't want to do that just because it's just going to gum up the system and confuse the people helping you, like what exactly you want. So just be really clear, like Fed loans had 6 months to review my file. The files didn't transfer over. Please fix it. Second, Amanda's question. Oh, okay. We got a question here on the 50K threshold. So let's see. I can't see Amanda's question, I think, because I have to scroll up a lot. So if anybody on our team is watching, maybe if you can find me Amanda's. Oh, here we go. I keep hearing the 50K income might be the threshold for a more limited loan forgiveness. Any thoughts on that? Yeah, so it's not going to be 50K. I would say, I would say that I am as sure of that as I was as sure that University of Florida was going to beat Oral Roberts University in the NCAA tournament yesterday, and then it happened. I'm just kidding. Just trying to make a weird joke. It didn't go very well. So I don't think $50,000 of student loan cancellation is going to happen. Period. Ever. No way. Not while President Biden at least is in charge. And the reason for that is because it would get challenged immediately in the Supreme Court. It's $1 trillion to do that. The $1 trillion, if you do it via executive order, doesn't affect the national debt. If you do it via legislation, it does. The reason is because in Congress, you have to do offset rules where you have to pay for things. Executive orders don't necessarily need to be paid for, at least with accounting like conventions. So that's really weird. And if you think about it, like what would happen is it would increase the deficit in the sense of like they wouldn't collect payments on the student loan debt in the future. And so it's really odd. Like you would get into a really complicated like battle in the Supreme Court over this if they canceled 50K. If they canceled 10K via executive order, I think they'll also challenge this in the Supreme Court just because it's a very powerful power to assume that you have. And I would assume that they would cancel it, or sorry, they would try to get it canceled, I guess, in the Supreme Court, even if they try to cancel 10K, which is why I think that the Democrats can definitely do one more reconciliation bill. That's all they have, though. They have one more reconciliation bill, so think about it like they have one last cartridge to use, so to speak, in the printer, and they're going to use it. And what are they going to put in there? Are they going to be able to do a bill that's even larger than the $1.9 trillion American Recovery Plan and include cancellation in that? I think that if they do, it's going to be very limited, like I've said, right? It's going to be a very narrow kind of thing. And that I think that, also you're going to have to get, so last one, the reason why the $1.9 trillion bill is like, is so widely supported by Republicans and Democrats is because you were able to basically pay for it without changing anything like from a tax perspective. So this infrastructure bill, they're talking about how they want to, make sure some of it's paid for, which obviously makes sense. And so, will they be able to get in a lot of student loan forgiveness into that bill if they have to raise taxes and have the headline number get into a level where I think some of the moderate people are going to push back? Democrats, I mean, moderate Democrats. I don't think so. So I've always kind of been pessimistic about the prospects for cancellation. Like, besides, I've always said for the people in economic distress, I think they're going to get it. And the reason is because if you look in the HEROES Act back in May of 2020, when the Democrats tried to pass their $3.4 trillion stimulus bill themselves, they limited the cancellation they had in the bill initially, which was 10K for everyone. They dropped that down to 10K for only people in economic distress, specifically because they got a really bad CBO score, which is just saying like the number that they were expecting it would cost came back at like way more than they thought it was going to be. So that's why in detail, I don't think you're going to see the 50K of cancellation for better or for worse. If your spouse is student debt free, we'll run for like 10 more minutes here. So if your spouse is student debt free and you have student loan debt 4x greater than household income, what's the best repayment plan? File separately if you can, and do pay as you earn. There might be some more complicated aspects to that. If you live in California or Texas or Arizona or one of the community property states, it's probably more complicated. You might be able to do some stuff with AGI limitation, like reductions. You might be able to talk about, just different things around like, I don't know, amending your tax returns potentially if you have a really bad tax penalty to see if that makes sense. So it's still more complicated than just say file separate, do pay, but that's probably the high level of it. I'm planning on moving to a private loan for lower rate, but currently take advantage of the freeze. So if you haven't watched my earlier comment, so literally go to, I'll put the link in here again in the chat. So literally go to our refinancing page. You can just click that link to go there. And I would highly suggest applying to, in terms of the places in the table. So I would, so here's like, so I would apply to like all of them in the table, but specifically Earnest, Laurel Road, SoFi, Common Bond. Like those are like probably the 4 most popular ones, but then also like Elfi and Credible, you should probably give it a shot too. I think the first 4 that I mentioned, like one of them, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this or not, so I'm not going to identify the name of the company, but they're offering a special that I've seen of 0% interest for 6 months plus a really awesome rate if you refinance by like April 15th or something like that. And it's not, they're not public about it. They haven't like broadcast it anywhere. Not everyone's qualifying for it, but from what I can tell, people that have the highest incomes and highest debts are the ones that are qualifying for it. So at a minimum, I would go and apply for some of these places just to see if you could potentially get one of these like ultra low, super secret deals. That I'm not sure I'm allowed to say which company, so I'm just going to leave it somewhat ambiguous. But I would definitely apply to see if you can get a lower rate. Melissa says if doing married filing separately on IBR 2020 tax return is updated, but husband's 2020 return hasn't been updated, will that mess up the IBR calculation? So, well, the answer is probably not, because you have to give them your tax return and you have to give them your spouse's information if you're filing separately. But that's only like you could give them a different year even, and like they're not supposed to use your husband's income for calculation of your IBR payment. So I would say like you could also send it in via mail if you had to, or you could wait a little bit if your recertification is not due yet. But if it is due, I would just make sure yours at least is correct, and then just have your spouse just upload whatever for proof of their income, because it shouldn't matter anyway. So for those of us going for forgiveness, Britt's asking, in 18 years, what is the chances that our tax bomb will be canceled? So I don't know, 18 years. Will we be in a retirement community or something? I mean, I guess like the way I would say it is if I don't know if I'm in a retirement, I guess hopefully not. What am I? So early 30s. So hopefully I'll still be alive and trucking and not in a retirement community yet. So I would feel comfortable with if your tax bomb is not canceled in 18 years, I would feel comfortable with you coming up to me in the street and sucker punching me right in the gut. I think it's that likely. Notice I didn't say, you could like execute me or something, because I'm not that sure, but I'm like pretty sure that the tax bomb is going to be wiped away. And if you think about why that is, think about who all of you are. You're this like, I know this is going to sound kind of like self-serving or something. I don't know. Or like, I don't know what's the word, like too congratulatory maybe, but you're some of the smartest, like most highly educated, most valuable potential voters that anyone could ever dream of, right? Like you employ people in a lot of cases, you're highly connected, you know a lot of people, you have a lot of influence as a voter on average compared to your average person, right? And so that is who's going to be impacted by the student loan tax bomb. It's going to be veterinarians, dentists, doctors, lawyers, chiropractors, pharmacists, PTs, fill in the blank. Anyone that, went to a graduate or professional degree is going to be affected. And every single one of these kind of groups has a professional lobbying association. So if you are and who controls those associations, those professional associations, it's the people that generally that are older in those professions. So by the time you're getting loan forgiveness in like the 2030s or 2040s, y'all will be the ones controlling the American Dental Association or, American Bar Association or whatever. And regardless if I'm a Democrat or Republican, if I'm a congressperson and I get a phone call from like 15 different major professional associations all calling for me to eliminate the tax bomb, and that only costs me $200 billion, but fixing Medicare is going to cost me $20 trillion. Am I going to go fix the $20 trillion Medicare problem, or am I going to go fix the $200 billion tax bomb problem? So I've been calling for the tax bomb to be eliminated now for a long, long time. But I've always said that I think the way they do it is they're going to use it as a bargaining chip to get more reform done. So that's why I think the Republicans will not agree to having the tax bomb eliminated without student loan, IBR, income-based repayment, Pslf reform. I think that they're going to push for that to be kept in the tax code. So my guess is if Democrats don't have triple control in 2026, you're going to see the tax bomb be brought back, in terms of they'll let it expire, because that's when the American Recovery Plan lets it expires. If the Republicans have even one of those branches, I think they'll let it expire, right? If Democrats do have triple control, though, I think they'll extend it again. And the real kind of precedent would be set once people start receiving tax-free forgiveness. That's when I expect you'd really see, some pretty big, benefits from the tax-free perspective. Don't refi until Joe gives us our 10K. That's funny. So I actually have a buddy who's who's very much like that. He's like, I gotta leave my $10,200 for my student loan cancellation. So I think that again, I personally would be refinancing the whole thing right now, especially if I got one of those 0% rates for 6 months or whatever that I was saying one of the companies in our site's offering to some people. But somebody the other day said, I want to leave 50K behind just to make sure I get cancellation if it happens. You can do that, but it's not happening, right? So it's kind of I don't know, do you want to keep 50K around to have 10K of it canceled via executive order and then have that end up at the Supreme Court for 2 or 3 years? Because that's basically what I think is going to happen. So I don't want anybody to get too excited about that, even though I feel like I'm the guy who's taking the punch bowl away from the party, right? So I'm still going on my cappuccino. So we're going to keep going because people are still asking good questions. So let's see, is there a program that works to move a Parent Plus loan to a student under a direct program, or is private loan refi the only option? The only option is private refi if you want the loan in the name of the kid. So Laurel Road and Common Bond on our student loans planner site will do that for you if you want to get the loan out of your name. The other alternative is a double consolidation loophole. So Megan on our team, Megan Landris, is excellent for double consolidation consultations for Parent Plus loans. It's extremely complicated. Dan and our team has got a consult in a couple hours to probably look at something like that. So very complicated question, but it's something that people do. Do banks view money in the market as liquidity when financing dental practices? So we tell people if you want to be a business owner, you need a lot of money in cash, a lot. And so what's a lot? 10% of your practice price is a good barometer. To qualify, you'll need 3 to 5% probably in cash. So I would not at all be oh my gosh, if I keep it in GME, it's going to be liquid assets, right? I'm joking around here. So you just need a lot of cash, a lot more than you think, just to make sure everything goes well. Think about your dental practice is your moonshot stock that's the once in a generation quality investment. That's what it is. And so you want to make sure you have enough cash to finance that, make sure that you don't have any problems getting it started. Also, if anybody's listening, I think you have if anybody's a dentist here, I think you have 1 week left to apply for this interest rate promotion deal with one of the big practice financing banks. You have to send me an email to get an intro for that. If you're looking to finance a deal, I think it's by June for a practice refinance or an initial practice loan. You might have, I think, a week more to qualify for that really great deal in practice financing. Let's see. So someone is asking about qualifying employers for PSLF purposes. So it just depends. I mean, so you generally just need to send in your PSLF form. I'd have to do more research on that, to be quite honest. Maybe one of the consultants can get back to you if you email us. But that's a pretty complicated question. Like in general, I say like 501c3, or it's really up in the air. But probably if it's a healthcare organization, it probably counts. But if it's in any way like for example, a white collar labor union, which is kind of like what the AMA is, then that would probably not count. So, however, American Bar Association lawyers that were doing nonprofit work, I think, got ruled in favor of them, but it's very complicated. Let's see. Any other questions? We'll take maybe I don't know, 5 more questions, something like that. If you want to put them in the chat. While I'm waiting on some questions, I just wanted to give a shout out to our amazing team. I think that our consultants are like the best in the business anywhere. All of them are so passionate about what they do, and I'm like really excited. Like now that I'm moving to North Carolina, like it's going to take me a few months to get set up, that we have them in place. They gave me rest during paternity leave this year during COVID. Like it was just so difficult. Like I don't know if any of you like had a child this year, but like, oh my gosh, it was so stressful, and like just the environment at the hospital was like crazy, and like it was so good just to be able to rest. And I like definitely wouldn't have been able to do that without the stellar team we've got. So we've got Lauren, Rob, and Megan, who are more experienced consultants. We have Dan and Molly, who are 2 newer consultants that just joined us. So we're excited to have an awesome group of people to give me a little bit of a rest, moving the whole family. So it'll be interesting. All right. So a couple more questions. Switching from repay today. So consult with Dan is so basically we do it by I'll just answer that question real quick. So we do it by approximately we do it by debt level, right? So like below 200K in debt's like about $400, it's $395, right? So it's $395 for less than 200K of debt, and then it's between 200K and 400K in debt, it's like $495 or about 500, and then above 400K in debt is $595 or about 600. And then if somebody specifically wanted to book with me, they book with the over 400K link on a Friday, and that's like the only way you can book me specifically. But our team now does 95% of the plans, I think. So all of these consultants are just amazing, and I can't say enough good things about them. So let's see. Someone's saying I'm graduating in May. SoFi is not letting me refinance until I graduate. So that's that might be the case with SoFi. You need to make sure that you apply to more places though than just them. So some of the lenders like Common Bond and Laurel Road, I know, will refinance you if you have an offer letter. At least they used to pre-pandemic. I'm assuming that they're still doing that. So as long as you have a W-2 like offer letter for a standard employment contract, if you're a physician or dentist, they should be able to refinance you. If you're not in the medical field, you might have to wait a little bit just because they're a little bit more conservative with the underwriting. Consults for people going back to school? Yes, we do. The pre-debt consult. So studentloanplanner.com/pre-debt is our pre-debt consult, where we go into like the financing decisions of going back for another professional degree. We can do it for people who are going for undergrad as well, but it's probably most useful for people that are going to a graduate program. So let's see. Yes. So somebody's asking, if you refinance, don't you lose forgiveness? Yes, you do. And if you have high debt, that's why we're saying if you have significantly more in student debt that you earn in income, probably shouldn't refinance, right? You probably should not be paying the debt back. You probably should be going for forgiveness. And, if you want to kind of overrule us, like what we tell people is like anything below like a 2-to-1 debt to income ratio. And in other words, if you owe less than double your income, it would be reasonable to refinance if you like really hated the idea of being in debt for 20 years, right? Because your savings rate is ultimately what determines your success. So if you owe less than twice your income in student debt, by all means, if you want to get rid of it and pay it back, go ahead and do it, right? If you're working for a nonprofit, obviously that'd be a really bad decision. But if you're in a private practice kind of world or private sector world and you owe less than 2 times your income, and you really want to pay it back, you can. We really recommend it though for people that have 1.25 debt to income ratio and lower. And if you owe more than twice your income, you can do one of 2 things. You can try to make more money to make it easier to justify paying it back, or you can completely tell us to go pound sand and do it anyway. We do have a couple people that have done that. Probably about half of them succeed and half of them come back saying like, why didn't you try to talk me out of it? So kind of an interesting situation there. Let's see. Someone needs to send in their first PSLF ECF form. Transfers are on hold due to COVID. Should I wait to do it until after the forbearance is over? No, I would send it in and then send it in again after the forbearance is over. Worst case scenario, it can't transfer over there twice. Let's see. Are we going to do face-to-face services when I move to the research triangle? If there's special requests, I can, I suppose. I did it back in the day when I was first getting started in student loan planning, and it's kind of hilarious. Like before I had like my own office, before student loan planner was like more than like me doing like 5 consults a week, and now it's like, I think we do like 30 or 40 a week, depending on the week, among our team. And so I would like meet people like pre-COVID, right? I just meet them in the co-working like kitchen sometimes, because like that was like back when I was like really brand new. And then we, eventually got like a place that I could like meet with clients in the co-working space. And so I would do some in-person consults. But yeah, the in-person consults, I feel really like, it feels awesome, because like virtual stuff, I don't know about you, but I'm like so zoomed out. Like, oh my gosh, like I just want to have everything be like painfully in person for the next like 3 years right now. I'm sure I'll like be like, why can't we go back to like virtual video stuff again, like pretty soon after we're allowed to do it, right? You always want what you can't have. But man, I'm really missing like getting like to occasionally meet clients and like actually like talk to them about things. It's always kind of cool to see how you transform somebody's life in the in-person stuff. Yeah, we'll probably have to do that at some point. So let's see. Can you be kicked out of loan forgiveness if you make too much money? You're not really kicked out. You'll just pay the loan off in full, and it won't benefit you too much. When you say income, do you mean pre-tax or take home? Kind of pre-tax. Like I would say though, like pre-tax before like adjusting for everything, probably. Like if like don't be like, oh, like my 100K income is like 81,500 after my 401K contributions, and therefore my debt to income ratio is 1.3, and I should go for forgiveness. Don't hear that. Just like view it as a guideline, right? Like below 1.25 to 1 is like a slam dunk, and then 1.25 to 2 debt to income ratio is kind of like like we should probably talk about it, and above 2 to 1 debt to income ratio is like, oh my gosh, you want to pay back your debt? Why are you doing that to yourself? Like go, I don't know, punch yourself in the face instead. I mean, I don't mean to be mean or anything, but it's like some people have like tried to do the anti-debt, like pay it all back approach, and they come back to me 2 years later and they're like, so like we didn't have a kid, we didn't buy a house, like we don't like have a car, and like we're really frustrated and we have nothing in our retirement. What do we do? Right? So I just want you to not end up in that situation. If you do the debt payback approach and you owe more than 2 times your income, like you need to be really committed to it, and just know that it's going to be tough. And like, the rice and beans thing's the real deal. Like if you do want to commit to that, you really do have to be extremely frugal to pay it all towards student loans. The good news is though, is you don't have to do that. You can have an amazing life. So many of our people have made so much money in investing, the past couple of years, 3 years or so, by putting the money into 401ks and stuff like that instead of their student loans, right? That was actually like spectacularly, it kind of, you can't predict the market, right? But like starting in 2016, it was like spectacularly bad advice if you needed to go for forgiveness to try to pay the loans down instead of going for a forgiveness-based strategy. Now, obviously, though, if you do need to pay the debt back because you make a good income, private sector, you should do that. And I'm really excited about those bonuses that we have where it's like all of them, the max bonuses is over $1,000. And the way that works is like you refinance, so you get like a few $100s from the company. And before you sign the papers, by the way, contact us if you have like above a certain amount. And then we can like see if we're being given credit, like student loan planners being given credit. And then we can give you the additional $500 bonus. That's how we're able to get you the full, 1,000+ bonuses with all the companies. So a couple more questions. Let's see, 1099 stuff. Yeah, like 1099 people, you can do SEP IRAs, you can do solo 401ks. I have a solo 401k. You can do a lot more than 19,500 in there. We do like 50 something thousand pre-tax for our solo 401ks to lower our taxable income. So it's pretty helpful. So it's a good forgiveness based, account to use. So let's see. So I think that I'll call it here. This is over an hour. It's our first YouTube live ever. We'll have the recording live on our YouTube channel. You can so here's a great plug. Subscribe if you haven't already to our YouTube channel, so you'll get notified for things like this in the future. I think there'll probably be a subscribe button that you can click on. And then, again, refinancing questions, send me an email if you made it through this live stream. I'm really grateful. Please send our team an email. We'll be happy to answer like any like custom refinancing questions that you have. For like what plan should I do type questions. Like that's probably better to like book somebody on our team. Dan, Molly, Rob, Lauren, or Megan to talk through it versus like because we're probably not going to feel comfortable telling you like should you go for forgiveness, should you refinance via email is like more involved conversation. But like, hey, I've got this amount, I've got this rate from this company, and like, do you think that it would be a good idea to like pull the trigger now or wait till the end of COVID? Like those are questions via email we love answering for people. Yeah. So last comment in the chat. Like, what is your thing you're gonna do? Your number one thing you're looking forward to doing in spring? If you want to pop that in the chat. I'm saying that because I said earlier on, like the reason why I'm like so sunburned is because we did a paddle boat the other day, and I just like completely forgot to wear sunscreen because I feel like I've been a hermit inside like for the winter here, and I just forgot the sun was a thing. So somebody's going to Hawaii, honeymoon in Alaska. Oh my gosh, Bahamas. Oh my gosh, right? So just take all that stuff that's happening in the chat and remember like that's why you make a smart decision on forgiveness versus payoff or student loan debt is so you can go afford all that stuff, not have to work forever and go have the most baller trips ever, right? So yeah, so definitely go festival season New Orleans. Yeah, so go book your vacations right now because I think that it's gonna get really expensive, y'all. Like, it's gonna be really hard to book like anything for like 3 years, probably. So, really exciting. So, thank you everyone again so much for showing up for our first live stream ever. Hopefully, we can do some more of these. If you have any feedback for me, like please put it in the comments so our team can like know that, so we can do a better job of live streams in the future. And have a wonderful day. Thank you, everybody.